The oars hit the water in perfect rhythm. Thousands of them, tens of thousands. The sound alone must have been deafening. A drumbeat of wood against sea, echoing across the Gulf of Patras like the breathing of something massive and alive. On the morning of October 7th, 1571, two fleets came into sight of each other, and the men aboard those ships knew what was coming. They'd heard the stories. They'd seen the scars. This wasn't going to be cannon fire from a distance. This was going to be close, personal, brutal. The Ottoman fleet stretched across the horizon like a crescent moon, over 200 galleys, their decks packed with janissaries, archers, and the best sailors the Sultan could muster. At the center, the massive flagship of Ali Pasha, commander of the Ottoman Navy, flew green banners embroidered with verses from the Quran. Across from them, the Holy League, a coalition of Spanish, Venetian, and Papal forces that had finally, miraculously, agreed to stop fighting each other long enough to face a common enemy. At their center, Don Juan of Austria, illegitimate son of an emperor, 24 years old, commanding a fleet that represented the last organized Christian resistance in the Mediterranean. For decades, the Ottomans had been winning, not just winning, dominating. They had taken Constantinople. They had pushed into Hungary. Their fleets raided the coasts of Italy with impunity, dragging thousands into slavery, burning villages, leaving behind nothing but ash and terror. The Mediterranean had become an Ottoman lake, and the Christians, fractured and exhausted, had watched it happen. But something had changed. The Ottomans had gone too far. In 1570, they invaded Cyprus, one of Venice's last strongholds in the east. The siege of Famagusta lasted nearly a year. When it finally fell, the Venetian commander, Marcantonio Bragadin, negotiated surrender terms. The Ottomans agreed. Then they broke their word. Bragadin was flayed alive. His skin was stuffed with straw and paraded through the streets of Constantinople. The message was clear. There would be no mercy, no negotiation, only submission or death. That atrocity united the squabbling powers of Catholic Europe in a way that decades of papal pleading never could. Spain, Venice, Genoa, Malta, even the Pope contributed galleys. They assembled the largest Christian fleet in a century, over 200 ships, more than 80,000 men, and they sailed east, hunting the Ottoman navy. Now, off the coast of Greece, they had found each other. The wind had died. That was the first problem. In an age of sail, no wind meant no maneuverability. But these weren't sailing ships. They were galleys, propelled by oars, by the muscles of men chained to benches below deck. Thousands of slaves, criminals, and prisoners of war, rowing in the stinking dark, whipped into rhythm by overseers who didn't care if they lived or died. Both sides had them. Christian slaves on Ottoman ships, Muslim slaves on Christian ships. And when the galleys rammed into each other, when the fighting began, those men would drown in the darkness below, still chained to their oars. The fleets closed, a few hundred yards, then 100. The Ottomans had numbers. They had speed. Their galleys were lighter, faster, built for raiding and pursuit. But the Holy League had something new: 6 galleasses, massive floating fortresses bristling with cannons. They were slow, awkward, impossible to maneuver. But they didn't need to maneuver. They just needed to sit there and fire. The Ottoman galleys hit them first, swarming around the galleasses like wolves around a bear. And the cannons opened up. Not the careful, aimed shots of later naval warfare. This was point-blank, brutal, cannonballs smashing through wooden hulls, tearing oars in half, shredding human bodies into pulp. The Ottomans had never seen firepower like this. Their lighter ships splintered. Men screamed. Some galleys tried to turn away. Others kept coming because retreat wasn't an option, not under the eyes of Ali Pasha, not in the name of the Sultan. And then the main lines collided. It wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter pit. Galleys rammed into each other, prows smashing through oars and hull, throwing men off their feet. Soldiers poured across the decks, swords and axes and pikes, fighting in a space so tight you couldn't swing without hitting someone. Janissaries, the elite Ottoman infantry, fought like demons, trained from childhood, fanatically loyal, terrifyingly effective. But they were facing Spanish tercios, the best infantry Europe had ever produced, veterans of a dozen wars, armed with arquebuses and pikes and a cold, professional brutality. The decks ran slick with blood. Men slipped and fell and were trampled. Others were thrown overboard, dragged under by the weight of their armor, drowning in water turned red. Galleys burned. Gunpowder stores exploded. The entire Gulf became a choking cloud of smoke and screams and the wet, heavy sound of blades hitting flesh. If you care about the kind of history that doesn't look away, you already know what to do. At the center, Don Juan's flagship rammed directly into Ali Pasha's. It was personal now. Command ship against command ship. The two leaders could see each other across the smoke, could hear each other's men dying. For an hour, maybe longer, the fighting raged on those two ships alone. Ali Pasha's janissaries pushed forward. The Spanish pushed back. Men fought over the same few feet of deck again and again, bodies piling up, making the footing even worse. And then the Spanish broke through. They overwhelmed the Ottoman defenders, cut down the janissaries, and reached Ali Pasha himself. He fought. He didn't surrender. They killed him where he stood, beheaded him, and raised his severed head on a pike. The green banners of the Prophet came down. The Christian cross went up. When the men on the surrounding Ottoman ships saw that, saw their commander's head held high, saw the banners fall, something broke. Not everywhere, not all at once, but the center began to collapse. Some ships tried to flee. Others kept fighting because they had nowhere to go, because the Christians were giving no quarter, because this was about survival now, not victory. On the Ottoman left flank, a commander named Ulujali, a renegade, a former Christian turned Muslim privateer, saw what was happening and made a choice. He couldn't win, but he could escape. He broke off, took his squadron, and ran. Fought his way out, lost a few ships, saved the rest. It was the only part of the Ottoman fleet that survived intact. Everywhere else, it was annihilation. Christian galleys hunted down the fleeing Ottomans, rammed them, boarded them, killed everyone aboard. Some Ottoman sailors jumped into the water and tried to swim for shore. The Christians shot them. Others surrendered. Some were taken as slaves. Many were just killed. The Christians had not forgotten Cyprus. They had not forgotten the flayed skin of Bragadin. This wasn't about chivalry. This was revenge. By the time the sun set, the water was thick with wreckage, shattered oars, splintered hulls, tens of thousands of bodies, floating face down, bobbing in the waves. The Ottoman fleet had lost over 200 ships, 30,000 men dead, 8,000 captured. The Holy League had won the most decisive naval victory in European history. But here's what's strange. Here's what makes this battle so haunting. It didn't change anything. The Ottomans rebuilt their fleet within a year. The Holy League fell apart almost immediately, everyone going back to their own squabbles and petty wars. The Ottomans kept raiding. The Christians kept fighting each other. The Mediterranean remained a battleground. And within a few decades, the Ottoman Empire would be just as powerful, just as terrifying, as it had been before Lepanto. So why does this battle matter? Why do we remember it? Because for one day, the myth of Ottoman invincibility died. For one day, the Christians proved they could win, that the greatest fleet in the world could be beaten, that the tide could turn. And every soldier, every sailor, every slave chained below deck who survived that day carried that knowledge with them. The Ottomans could bleed. They could lose. They were not unstoppable. Moments like this are why people stay subscribed. Among the wounded that day was a young Spanish soldier named Miguel de Cervantes. He took 2 gunshot wounds to the chest and one that shattered his left hand, leaving it useless for the rest of his life. He would later write about that battle, about the terror and the glory, about men fighting for causes they barely understood. And years later, he would write a book about a delusional old man who thought he was a knight, tilting at windmills, chasing impossible dreams. Don Quixote, the greatest novel in the Spanish language. Born, in part, from the blood-soaked decks of Lepanto. There's a painting of the battle, done years later, hanging in a museum now. It shows the fleets crashing together, banners flying, men frozen in the act of killing each other. It's beautiful in a terrible way. Clean. Heroic. Nothing like the reality. But maybe that's the point. Maybe we need the myth as much as the truth. Maybe we need to believe that battles can be won, that evil can be stopped, that one good day can matter, even if everything falls apart again afterward. The slaves below deck, the ones who survived, most of them stayed slaves. They were just traded from one master to another. The Christians freed the Christian slaves and kept the Muslims. The Ottomans, when they rebuilt, did the same in reverse. The system didn't change. The cruelty didn't change. Only the names of the dead. But for the men who fought at Lepanto, for the ones who saw the Ottoman banners come down, for the ones who lived to tell the story, it was the day the world tilted. Just for a moment, just long enough to remember. The bodies washed up on the shores of Greece for weeks afterward. Bloated, unrecognizable, stripped of anything valuable by scavengers. No one knows how many men died that day. The numbers are guesses, estimates. We know it was thousands. We know the water turned red. We know that for months afterward. Fishermen refused to go out into the Gulf of Patras, said the sea was haunted, that you could hear screaming at night. Maybe they were right. If this is the kind of history you want more of, the kind that doesn't sanitize or look away, then make sure you're here for the next one. The Ottoman Empire would last another 300 years after Lepanto. It would lay siege to Vienna. It would control vast swaths of Europe, Asia, and Africa. It would be one of the most powerful states on earth. But it would never again dominate the Mediterranean the way it did before October 7, 1571. That day, something broke that never fully healed. Not because of strategy, not because of technology, but because men fought and bled and died, and for once, just once, the other side lost. And sometimes in history, once is enough.